Welcome in to another episode of the Gridiron Fantasy Show. I'm your host, Paul Edgington. Going to be flying solo tonight on this one. Going to be going over some week one college football bets, what I'm placing and what I'm looking at for this week. You can find me on Twitter at Gump7285, and you can find the podcast page at gridiron_FS. So we'll dive right into it. Mostly going to focus on the nationally televised games, the games that most of us will be paying most attention to. So the first one we're going to take a look at here, I am using outlier.bet. It's what I use for all my betting and game research, for all the data and analytics. And first up, we'll take a look at UNC and Minnesota. For this one, it started out UNC was, I believe, 1.5 point underdogs, and then the last couple of days it switched to them being 2.5 point favorites. So not really, don't have any confirmed information on why the switch happened, but most people are speculating that it is because of injuries to Darius Taylor, the star running back from Minnesota, and then also Daniel Jackson, one of their star wide receivers as well. As you can see here, Jackson's questionable, Taylor's probable. Of course, we know by now with the college football injury reports, we don't know what the hell's going on. But that's what I speculate as well, is those two big time players for the Minnesota offense are potentially leaning towards being out for this game. So that's what I attribute that to. I'm hoping Darius Taylor plays. I'm a big fan of his, especially for Devy. Absolutely love watching him play. And when he played last year, he was dominant when he did start. So one of my bets for this game will be on Darius Taylor. If he doesn't play, the bet will just be refunded and voided, so no harm done. But I like him for 80 plus rushing yards, and I'm going to ladder that all the way up to 120 plus. Last year, he went over the 80-yard mark in 4 or 5 games. The one miss was when he left the game early due to injury. So I'd like to think if he did play that full game, he would have hit the mark once again. So those Taylor plays and the latter will be the only ones that I'm really looking to get into on the Minnesota side of things for player props. And then for North Carolina, just one. It's an anytime touchdown for the tight end Bryson Nesbitt. He led UNC last year in red zone target share at 30%. So once again, that red zone, he's going to be the guy they're looking to, and maybe he'll come down with one. But that's all I really like on the UNC side of things. Omarion Hampton is a stud. His line is set at 98.5 rushing yards right now. I could see him going over, but I could also see him going under as well. Max Johnson's in there, quarterback. It's the first time UNC has not had an NFL quarterback in the last handful of years between Sam Howell and Drake May. They are going to be more on the slower pace side of things, so less plays, more clock running. So I could see him hitting the under based on pace of play in this one. Minnesota doesn't play very fast either with their heavy run game with Darius Taylor. So if anything, I would lean to the under on Omarion Hampton, 98.5 rushing yards. And as far as the actual game line here, as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, 57% of the bets for the money line is on UNC, but 76% of the money is on Minnesota's side, and that's where I land. I think Minnesota takes this one. I just think they'll end up being the better team on this particular day. Who knows with Max Johnson, how he's going to perform. Very statue quarterback, doesn't move around a lot. So Minnesota's pass rush might have an easier day getting home to Max Johnson. So that's where I'm going. So for this one, Darius Taylor over 80 rushing yards, laddering that up to 120. Minnesota money line. And Bryson Nesbitt anytime touchdown on this one. And then for the Colorado game, I really love Travis Hunter. I think he's going to go above 70 receiving yards. He hit that line 7 of 9 games last year. And one miss was, of course, the Colorado State game where he got knocked out of the game early. And then he missed against UCLA. He only had, I believe, 7 receiving yards in that one. So we'll go ahead and take a look at his chart right here for last season. Yeah, right there. 21 yards against Colorado State, left early, and 7 versus UCLA. So, other than that, besides the 2 misses, the lowest he had was 73. So, I think this one's a pretty good bet here. So, I will be taking him for 70 plus receiving yards. And he is the second leading target share percentage wide receiver coming back to the team, right behind Jimmy Horn, only by 5 targets last year. So we'll see how this offense performs between Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, and then, of course, LeJontay Wester and Will Shepherd, the transfer, and the returning of Marion Miller as well. So they have a pretty decent wide receiving core compared to last year, in my opinion. But I think Hunter is still going to be the alpha, the go-to for Shedeur Sanders in this offense. So give me him at 70 plus, and I don't mind his anytime touchdown either. If any of the receivers are going to find pay dirt, I think it's going to be Travis Hunter in this one. And then I'm also taking Colorado for -9.5 or -10, depending on what book you're looking at and what book you're playing on. But I like them to win this game by double digits. Defense has improved. I'm not sure how much over last year, but it's got to be improved because they were just that bad on defense. They did work on the offensive line to bring in a couple transfers, the number 1 tackle in the recruiting class. They worked on the defensive line. So as far as the trenches and that area of the field, Colorado is going to be improved. Hopefully, give Shedeur just another extra second to get the ball out, and hopefully he'll find Travis Hunter early and often in this one. And the next game I will take a look at will be the noon kickoff for West Virginia and Penn State. I think Penn State's going to win this one. I think West Virginia does have a chance to pull the upset, but I'm not betting any money on that side of things. Penn State's currently favored by 8.5 points. They are on the road in Morgantown, which is a tough environment to play in. They do have a new offensive coordinator from Kansas, Andy Kotelnicki. So previously, he has pushed the ball downfield, but James Franklin has not allowed his past handful of offensive coordinators to do that at Penn State. So we'll see if he loosens the reins on that type of play calling or what happens there. But if they do push the ball downfield, I think it could be better for the offense, open up more things for Drew Aller and the dynamic duo of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. So at 8.5, I'm going to lean towards the Penn State side. I do think they cover that. As far as player props, I really like Cole Taylor for West Virginia. Let's see here. His prop is set at 23.5 receiving yards at the moment, and I think that's a pretty easy over for him. Looking at last year, he was the favorite target in the offense for Garrett Green, the dual threat quarterback for West Virginia, and I think he's not going to have too big of an issue to hit the over and get himself 24 receiving yards in this one. Last year, he was 9 of 13, and 2 of them 21 and 20. So he was right there. As you can see here, he had 19% target share last year. He was the leading target getter, and he is returning. And then once again, the red zone, it goes even higher to 26.8. So I think this is a pretty good bet for him. Again, the favorite target in the offense, the tight end, and the safety blanket for Garrett Green, who doesn't push the ball downfield himself. So I think that's a pretty good bet. The over 23.5 receiving yards for Cole Taylor, the tight end for West Virginia. And then let's see what else we can find for that game. That would be my top player prop for that one personally. CJ Donaldson, anytime touchdown, always worth a sprinkle in my opinion. Last season, he scored more often than not. 10 out of 12 games he scored at least one touchdown, had one game of 2. So it's worth a sprinkle every time. He was the leading rusher last year, but with Garrett Green coming back and Jaheim White, I expect a bigger role for Jaheim White this year. He looks spectacular. But the important one on this is the red zone rushing attempts. Last year, Donaldson got 36.7% of those carries, really only competing with Garrett Green for the most part at 25%. So once they're in the red zone, Garrett Green loves to target Cole Taylor, and they love to give it to C.J. Donaldson to hammer it up the middle for a touchdown. So C.J. Donaldson's anytime touchdown I also like as well. It's definitely worth a sprinkle each and every week. I mean, when he scored in 10 out of 12 games last year, you can't go wrong with that one. Drew Allers under 0.5 interception. He only had 2 picks last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, 2 picks last year, both in separate games. So I probably won't be putting any money on this one. I'm not a big fan of the 0.5 props. All they need is one. That's it. It can happen on any given play. So I think I'm going to stay away from that one. And really, that's all I'm going to play in this one is the C.J. Donaldson anytime TD and the Cole Taylor over 23.5 receiving yards. I mean, we have Katron Allen set at 55, 56.5 rushing yards. But with this offense being a new look offense and Katron and Nick Singleton splitting the backfield the last 2 seasons, who knows what that's going to look like. Nick Singleton set at 60.5 rushing yards on Prize Picks. So I'm going to stay away from the backfield duo in this one and just target Cole Taylor, CJ Donaldson, and the 8.5 point spread for. And then also kicking off at noon on Saturday will be the big time matchup of Clemson and Georgia. For this one, I'm staying away from all player props. Clemson's offense should be improved in their second season under offensive coordinator, Kate Klubnik coming back, Phil Maffa. Hopefully a healthier receiving core with Antonio Williams, Tyler Brown, and then they do have the highly regarded true freshman TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, and the tight end Jake Briggenstall, who's a pretty good weapon in the receiving game. So it should be improved, but they are playing Georgia. I mean, they're fucking Georgia. We know what they do. Then we know what they can do on defense. Offensively, I'm staying away from them as well. The only one I would really entertain is possibly Carson Beck's passing touchdowns. Or, sorry, not passing touchdowns, but passing yards. Let's pull that up, see what he is sitting at right now. Carson Beck. Yeah, over 1.5 passing touchdown. Very, very juiced to the over, negative 158, 155. Potentially adding that into a parlay would be something I would do with that. And his passing yards is set at 259.5 as of this moment. So let's see here. Last year, he hit that line 10 out of 14 games, ending the season, 3 straight unders for that. So, but he did play Bama, played FSU in that bowl game that nobody really gave a damn about. So at least the bowl game can be excused. I would probably hit the over on this one if I were to bet it. I'm on the fence about it right now because I do think Georgia controls this game, double-digit lead probably for most of the game, or at least 2 scores. So I think I'm going to stay away from the player props on this one. Who knows what the backfield's going to look like with Trevor Etienne. I think he's suspended for the first half, if I remember correctly. And Branson Robinson, Roderick Robinson. We don't know how that backfield's going to shake out as of yet. And then they did remove wide receiver Robert Thomas within the last month or so from the team. So the wide receiver core is a complete unknown. Oscar Delp is returning. Absolutely love Oscar Delp. He's my number 2 tight end in the upcoming 2025 class. But I'm going to stay away from the player props. And on this one, I am going to do an alternate spread and take Clemson plus 14.5. I think they lose by 14. So I don't see Clemson covering this one. Or, I'm sorry, I don't see Georgia winning by less than 2 scores in this one. I just don't think Clemson's going to be able to keep up. I don't think they're going to be very good once again this year. I don't see a bounce back for Dabo Swinney, unfortunately. And now we will turn to the 3:30 window with the battle of the Florida teams, Miami and the Florida Gators. Miami is currently the favorite in this one by 2.5, and I'm going to take that spread. I would put money on the spread of 2.5 and the money line for Miami. I think they walk away from the Gators with a win in this one. Miami is my pick to win the ACC and go on to be a top 4 seed in the college football playoff. If you listen to this show before, you know the love for Cam Ward around these parts. Absolutely love him. I think this Miami offense is going to be pretty damn explosive this year with Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, Xavier Restrepo, Sam Brown, JoJo Trader. I believe Elijah Arroyo is also returning for, I don't know, sixth, seventh year at tight end. So I think this offense is going to be explosive. They can put up points and they can do it in a hurry. And I think Cam Ward does end up in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. But I don't see Florida being able to get it done. Graham Mertz is back there starting once again for the Gators. I do love Eugene Wilson on the outside as well as Elijah Badger. Montrell Johnson is a pretty damn good running back in the SEC, but I don't see the Gators being able to keep up with Miami and get enough stops in this one with Graham Mertz leading the way on a more conservative offense. So I will go ahead and take the points for Miami at 2.5 and also take their money line as well. Looking at player props, not really much I'm interested in this one. Maybe Damian Martinez over 72.5 rush yards. Again, going to look at last year's. He went 10 of 12 games over, but that was at Oregon State in a completely different offensive system. So we don't know how often he's going to be fed these carries, if he's going to get the same amount of work as he did at Oregon State. I would assume he would, or else why the hell would you bring him in if you're not going to feed the big guy? And then Cam Ward's passing yards is currently set at 261.5. Again, different system last year, but when he went over this line, he absolutely soared over it. His lowest output would have been 288 of any of the hits. He did go over the line 8 of 12 games last year at Washington State. So for that, I think I'll go ahead and take Cam Ward's over on that one, over 261.5 for his passing yards. And then the other prop I would play in this game would be Eugene Wilson's anytime touchdown. Where's Trey Wilson here? There he is. Let's go over to his touchdown. So last year, 50%, 5 of 10. End of the season, the last 4 out of 5 games, he scored a touchdown. Big playmaker, dynamic with the ball in his hands, and he also is a little bit of a rushing threat. Last year, he saw 6 carries. I believe he had a touchdown on the ground as well, and he also had 2 carries in the red zone last year. So you never know on the jet sweeps, the end rounds, he could get a carry somewhere in there and possibly spring it for a touchdown. So that's the 2 player props that I am playing is Cam Ward over 261.5 passing and Eugene Wilson's anytime touchdown to go along with the money line and Miami to cover the 2.5 point spread. And now looking at the game in the prime time window, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Texas A&M Aggies. Lots of new faces in this one. Of course, Mike Elko, the new head coach at Texas A&M. They no longer have Evan Stewart. Unfortunately, lost star running back Ruben Owens to a lower body injury, and he is done for the year. So big blows to that A&M offense. Connor Wegman is back and healthy. And then Notre Dame, a new signal caller, another transfer, and Riley Leonard. And then they also have a couple new receivers, most notably Chris Mitchell out of FIU. I really like him in this offense. I think he's going to put up decent numbers. And right now, the money line sets in Texas A&M's favor. They are 3-point favorites at home. I really like Notre Dame to pull out the win on the road in this one. I think Riley Leonard is experienced enough to go into Kyle Field and handle the hostile environment that they have to offer at Texas A&M. He's going to have a go-to guy in Chris Mitchell. Running back Jeremiah Love is going to be the man on the ground for them. And right now, it looks like his rushing yards is set at 59.5. A lot of red last year. He didn't go over this one time, but it was a running back by committee last year with Audric Estime. Estime getting majority of his carries at almost 50% rush share. So Jeremiah Love is the top returning rushing player for the Fighting Irish. So going over 60, I don't know. That seems like a pretty stiff line. And looking at Texas A&M last year, they only allowed 108 rushing yards per game, which was good for 14th in the nation. So very good against the run. I think I'll go ahead and skip out on this one. I'm not going to take the over, not going to take the under. If I had to lean one way, I would probably take the over, as I think they're going to be winning this game, so they might be able to salt the clock with Love on the ground. There's not really much that I love about player props in this one. Again, Chris Mitchell, I think he's going to be the go-to target for Riley Leonard in this offense. His current line is 36.5 receiving yards. Last year, he went over that 10 out of 12 games. Again, different school, different system at FIU. And looking at the target share from last year, Rico Flores, Mitchell Evans coming back from a torn ACL. Chris Tyree is gone. Tobias Merriweather's gone. Holden Stays is gone. So there's lots of vacated targets in this offense, and I think Chris Mitchell is going to gobble them up. So I think I actually like that one. I would take his over. I'd probably go up to 39.5 if need be for this one. I think he's going to get at least 40 receiving yards in this one. But that would be the only player prop that I'd be interested in, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. So I would play that as well as Notre Dame's money. And now on to the final game I'm going to take a look at, LSU and UCLA, which will be in the Sunday night primetime slot. This one's probably going to be the most entertaining game to watch of the whole entire week one, in my opinion. Neither of these teams play very much defense. I love Harold Perkins for LSU, but he moves around so much. He doesn't have a true position right now, it seems. That defense was still bad even with him the last 2 years and how good of a player he is. And USC under Lincoln Riley, we know Lincoln Riley teams don't play very much defense. So I think this is going to be a shootout. It's a toss-up for me who I think is going to win. LSU's favored by 4.5 right now. I'm not taking either money line or the spread. Where I'm at in this one is going to be the over for the total, which right now on FanDuel is set at 64.5. I'm going to take the over on that one. Two explosive offenses. Garrett Nussmeier is a dark horse to be a top 3 quarterback in this class, in my opinion. He's going to have his guy Kyron Lacey to chuck it to. Caleb Jackson out of the backfield. A very, very explosive, solid sophomore running back. And then USC, we got a little preview of what this offense could do post Caleb Williams in the bowl game, where Miller Moss dropped 6 touchdowns. And then, of course, we know Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane. So they got also the transfer running back from Mississippi State, Jaquavian Marks. So they have reloaded once again, even post Caleb Williams. So I think that offense is going to be equally as explosive, if not more, than what it was previously. So for that one, I'm going to take like I said, the total of over 64.5. And then player prop wise, this one's tough. Right now, Caleb Jackson is set at 52.5 rush yards, but also his counterpart, Josh Williams, is set at 55.5 rush yards. We don't know who's going to be the number one or the 1A and 1B in this backfield as of right now. I'm hoping it's Caleb Jackson for all my best ball shares, but we don't know that at the moment. So I'm going to stay away from those two. Miller Moss is set at 285 for passing yards. If I had to lean, I would take the over on that one. The one I'm most interested in is Zachariah Branch's anytime touchdown. We know how explosive and electrifying he is. Started out real hot last year, scored in his first 3 games, and then didn't really do shit. Scored in one other game, and that was it for the year. Would have liked to see him be utilized better than what he was last year. I mean, he was 3rd on the team in target share, but he only had 10%. He is the top returning target getter on the team. So he will hopefully be peppered with more targets than last year, utilized differently, get the ball in his hands in space, not so much right around the line of scrimmage like he was last year. So his anytime touchdown prop is going to be a weekly play for me personally. It's worth a sprinkle, just like CJ Donaldson is. And especially if he's on return duty, he can pop one to the house via punt return or kick return. I'm all for it. So again, for USC LSU, over 64.5 total, and Zachariah Branch, anytime touchdown is where I'm at on this one. And that'll do it for the games that I'm really going to dive into on this episode. For non-televised games, my favorite bet right now is probably Jacksonville State, -2.5 over Coastal Carolina. Jacksonville State will be a home. Good old Rich Rod is working his magic once again, so I think they'll cover against the Chanticleers. And I'll go ahead and build a little money line parlay on this. Like I said, Notre Dame, I believe they are going to walk away with the victory, so they will definitely be in the parlay. So we'll go ahead and add that here on Outlier to our slip. And then Miami, I'm also very confident they're going to walk away with a W as well. And then just to, Colorado is not listed on here. Colorado would be my other bet to throw into a parlay, a little three-legger. Right now, just with Notre Dame and Miami, the odds are FanDuel has plus 281 and DraftKings is plus 290. So that would be a nice little two-legger. Like I said, I would also toss Colorado on there as well to make it a nice odd three-leg parlay. So that's what I will go ahead and put in on probably DraftKings, a little bit better odds over there. And assuming Colorado should be about 350, 345 on both platforms as well. And now I'll go ahead and take a look at Sleeper and see what kind of props they have up over there to see if I can build a slip. All right, so in Sleeper, it looks like they have a majority of the picks that I talked about here on this episode. So I pretty much just threw them all on a one slip. It'll be an 8-legger. It is a flex slip, so in order to at least get some kind of money back at 1.3x, you need to hit 6 out of the 8. And then 7 correct would be 5x. And if you hit all 8, 69x. So I went ahead and threw Darius Taylor over 68.5 rush yards. So a big discount compared to what I think his floor is. Travis Hunter, 65.5 receiving yards. Cole Taylor, 23.5 receiving yards. Cam Ward, 261 pass yards. And then Eugene Wilson, Zachariah Branch, and Bryson Nesbitt, anytime touchdowns. And then Chris Mitchell over 36.5. So I'll go ahead and click submit on this one. Again, an 8-leg, not the most optimal, but it is a flex slip. So why the hell not? A lot of the times you just got to ask, why not me? Why can't we hit that perfect 8 for 8 in the 69x? So I'll go ahead and throw that lotto slip on Sleeper. And then if you're not on Sleeper already, please use my code GUMP, GUMP, to get a 100% deposit match up to $100 for your first time deposit. And you'll also get a free square pick, so 0.5 pick to add in on one of your first slips. And then Outlier. It's like I said, it's what I use for all my bets, all my betting research, game research, just the amount of data that is on here for all sports, NFL, college football. They got the bases covered with all the major sports. Absolutely love it. It's my favorite. The only thing I really use for betting. It's about the only thing I need for what I'm looking for. So there will be a link in the description on here for a 7-day free trial with my affiliate link, or you can try the code GUMP on Outlier as well. So that'll do it for this episode. Again, please give us a follow on Twitter at Gump7285, at Gridiron_FS. If you could please leave a rating review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, give us a subscribe and a like on our videos on YouTube as well as we venture into the YouTube waters. But appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you're not already subscribed to the Destination Devy radio feed, you need to be subscribed. podcasts coming out multiple times a week, damn near daily at this point. If you're on YouTube, you see the new merch I'm rocking for the DD Fantasy Football of the rebranding. So we will be back on their feed this coming Saturday with the return of the Destiny College Football podcast. So make sure you catch us over there and all the dope content and podcasts that the other creators are putting out as well. So appreciate you for listening and see you on the next one.